Brandi Mitchell is the founder of San Diego Soccer Women, an organization that serves to increase opportunities for women to join, continue, or return to soccer without the limits of age or gender. Brandi is committed to connecting and expanding the global community of recreational female soccer players of every ability level. Ms. Mitchell is also on the board of directors for the Sports Bra Project. Tseu is a Sacramento native and Sacramento State graduate. Stephanie is executive director at Girls on the Run of Greater Sacramento, where she oversees program delivery and expansion of services, community partnerships, strategic planning, and supporting the coaches and board of directors. Eliza graduated with her bachelor's in sports sciences from UOP and transferred to Cal State San Bernardino to pursue her master's in rehabilitation counseling and completed her playing career in 2013. Eliza is currently an adjunct faculty member and assistant women's basketball coach at San Joaquin Delta College and is co-owner of Fitness Works Lodi. Kim Turner is co-CEO of Bay Area Women's Sports Initiative and has over 1 decade of experience as a nonprofit Title IX attorney, including with legal aid at Works Fair Play for Girls in Sports Project. Most recently, Kim has served as director of the Gender Equity Initiative at Positive Coaching Alliance, advancing sports-based gender equity for girls, coaches, schools, youth sports stakeholders, and community programs. Tifani Bartow is the Deputy Director of Operations and Grants at the California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls. Tifani played softball at Sacramento State University and is now the proud mom of a daughter who is a competitive USA gymnast. Tifani is a USA Gymnastics Ambassador and is committed to building a culture of health and safety for all athletes. Thank you all for being here tonight. So let's jump right in. Stephanie, let's start with you. So Girls on the Run of Greater Sacramento just celebrated 20 years. So congrats, that's a great accomplishment. Your program served Sacramento, Yolo, and the western slopes of Placer and El Dorado counties. And they are about more than just running, right? They address gender stereotypes, societal obstacles, and cultural challenges that can be detrimental to emotional and physical health. So how do your programs tackle these challenges, and what are some of the barriers to sports and physical activities in general that you see in your area? And also, what does access and inclusivity look like for Girls on the Run?
Yeah, leave it there, I'll fix it, okay?
Thank you. Sorry, I heard some background. Yeah, just to be clear, at Girls on the Run, we're actually not a running club. We're not a track club. We are a group that gets together for the girls. We have curriculum that we follow that focuses on social emotional learning, character building, connection, friendship, life skills, and joy. We want the girls to find joy in what they're doing, and that includes in the physical activity and the running. And then we use running as a mechanism to put our lessons into practice. And so we have lessons on friendship and teamwork, conflict resolution, emotions, empathy, that all emotions are normal, but what do we do with them? Those are the things that we cover, and then we put those lessons into practice through the running portion and the physical activity portion of our program. We are not a competitive program at our 5K. It's just everyone completes it. And so for the girls that are not, amazingly fast runners, they still get that sense of completion. They get to be proud of what they did, what they worked towards. They get to complete a goal. And that's really what we focus on. But we know that girls are struggling. The recent CDC report that came out earlier this year says that 57% of teen girls, they responded that they persistently feel sad or hopeless. That's nearly twice what the boys responded, and almost 60% increase from the last report from 10 years ago. Even more devastating, 37% of girls reported seriously considering suicide. That's terrible. We know girls are struggling. That 37% is double over double what the boys responded. And so they're telling us that they're struggling. And so we need to listen, and having access to sports, being part of a team, but that sense of belonging that can give you, that's what we really are interested in creating for these girls. The pride of just trying their hardest, know that they can do hard things, that they are strong, feel those endorphins going through them. So yeah, that's a lot of what we do. And there are barriers. Probably the same in every area. Cost, financial ability is really a big issue for the girls that we see. Not just the cost to sign up to participate, but also what it takes to participate. So signing up for a soccer team, well, now they need shin guards, they need the cleats. Being a part of our program, you also, it's running, it's physical activity. So having shoes, running shoes, a sports bra. That's something that a lot of people forget, that even though our girls are in grades 3 through 8, I have girls in my program of 3 through 5, grades 3 through 5, who require a sports bra. If families have to purchase that and shoes and pay for the program, that's a barrier. Transportation is also a big barrier that we see. Being able to get the girls and kids from a school to a practice with work schedules, it's just really hard. So making sure that we have practices at schools so that families don't have to figure out and deal with the hassle of an additional pickup and additional drop off. You asked about access and inclusivity. That's huge for us. Knowing that you feeling that you belong, that allows you to open up, try new things, be vulnerable. Otherwise, you're just not going to do that. And especially for young girls, they're not going to do that. And again, that then doesn't allow them to express themselves freely, to try as hard as they might if they feel that belonging. So for us, that looks like our girls, we give 40% of our girls a scholarship. We also give all of our scholarship girls a free pair of running shoes. And now we can give them a sports bra. This is the first season that we're able to give girls a sports bra, and it's huge. I've never seen the smiles from these girls to get us. They were just so excited. It also means that all of our activities we need to be able to accommodate the abilities of all girls, whether it's physical, cognitive, emotional. All of our activities need to be able to allow all girls to fully participate so that we can change what we do in our program so that girls don't feel like they can't participate or that they don't belong. Language accessibility is also a challenge for some of our families. We notice that if we have online registration, not all families are comfortable doing that. And so being able to print out the registration and have it available, not just in English and Spanish, but we have a lot of Russian speaking families that are part of our program. And so to make that available to the families, not just rely on the girls to translate, again, let them be a girl. The families then can feel that they are have a sense of belonging right off the bat as well. So we want girls to know that they're unique, not different. I think flipping that and allowing girls to know that that uniqueness is their superpower allows them to really shine. And that's what we do at Girls on the Run. And we hope that that sticks with them long after they cross the finish line.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie. It sounds like a great organization. And I just want to clarify, because I know that I think you and I talked about this in our early conversations like months ago when we're talking about inclusivity. It was kind of being similar as far as like the commission. When we say women and girls, we're talking about anybody who identifies as a woman or a girl. And that's also
Correct.
true for Girls on the Run. Okay.
Yes,
Awesome.
absolutely. Thank you for
Awesome.
clarifying that. Yes.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you. All right. Well, Kim, you're up next. So Bay Area Women's Sports Initiative, is it pronounced, so when we say the acronym, is it BASI?
Bossy, yeah. We
Like
have
a boss,
bossy
okay.
girls, bossy kids, yes.
Okay, awesome. I love it. Well, Bossy provides powerful interventions for girls who live and go to school in under-resourced communities, focusing on increasing resiliency in children living with adversity in the form of access, which stands for activity, connection, contribution, expectations, skills for life, and sense of belonging. What does this look like in your Bossy Girls program with 2nd through 5th graders and your Bossy Rollers program that serves both girls and boys with physical, cognitive, and hearing disabilities to promote fun and physical activities through adaptive activities?
Yeah, thanks for that, Kim. So very excited to be here. And, similar to the points that Stephanie made, and I think others will touch upon, we know certain kids are just not getting the chance to play sports in California, in the nation, in the world, especially girls in under-resourced areas, especially kids with disabilities. So Bossy exists to fill those gaps. We're very proud to also be nearly 2 decades serving kids, girls especially, and kids with disabilities in under-resourced areas in the South Bay of California and along the peninsula. Roughly 1,000 kids a year at our various elementary, middle, and now high school sites and campuses. And really what it looks like is, girls who really wouldn't, for example, get a chance to play sports, be on a team, even be active in recess or PE. We do see often girls literally on the sidelines who would want to be playing out there in 2nd grade on the kickball field or in basketball or soccer, and they don't feel welcome. They don't necessarily feel part of it. So Bossy works hard to make sure kids do feel part of it, do feel that safe, comfortable space where they can go out, take a risk, try something new, to get, physical and to move around and use their bodies, have that mental and physical benefit of that movement on our sites. And we do that with coaches, particularly women coaches who go out to these sites and work with the kids. And it's a continuum of activity that we use. We don't just say, okay, try and catch this football for flag football or go ahead and dribble the soccer ball. We introduce movement to the kids and the girls in ways that is, again, welcoming, again, not too intimidating, and meeting them where they're at is so critical because, too often we see our sports worlds impose or sort of assume, well, why don't you want to jump in? And why aren't you dribbling this basketball? Well, you don't have one at home, or your parents or guardians aren't necessarily dribbling with you on the driveway or at the schoolyard after school. So we're very excited to be exposing girls and kids with disabilities to sport and physical activity with the aim of them having a lifetime of success and wellness. So we know girls graduate, for example, at higher rates if they played sports in school. We know over 90% of executive women in the corporate suite played sports growing up. We actually know that girls who played sports in high school go on to make 7% higher wages than their non-athlete peers. So there's actually economic power in girls being physically active, playing sports, but that has to start somewhere. So Bossy, and similar to Girls on the Run, are working with younger kids on getting that gateway to physical activity and sport with the hopes that they will try out for the team when it comes up at the Park and Rec, the middle school, the high school. And also another neat part of Bossy is that we try to expose girls and kids to college, for example. So we do a college game day for our participants where the girls can go to a local Bay Area college and watch women's basketball, which, to see her, you can be her, have that kind of role modeling that too often our kids aren't having. And then we actually also have corporate site visits. So we'll actually take our participants, our girls, to a corporation, Intel, or one of our wonderful Silicon Valley businesses, and they can learn what would it be like to work here, having that access and those role models and exposure. So we're very proud of our programming. We were founded by Brandi Chastain and Julie Foudy and Marlene Bjornsrud, who all pioneered in women's sports and recognized while we're making progress, we see the Women's World Cup, we see the WNBA, we still have a long way to go. I'll lastly say that I'm passionate about access and equity in sports. I've been working as a Title IX lawyer also for a long time. And we don't realize that girls, especially in under-resourced areas, are not playing sometimes at all. So we've done research over the years that showed some cities in California with 12% girls in park and rec sports, 16% girls in park and rec sports, with the rest mainly being boys. And so we know girls are saying, I do want to play. I am absolutely interested, but they need a woman coach often that looks like them, that's connected to them, that has that lived experience and can say, hey, you can do this. Come dribble with me. And we're really proud to have not just the physical and the emotional part of the programming, but that leadership pipeline to say you can do it and then be a leader in your school, an athlete for a lifetime, and successful in the workplace later on.
I love it. Thank you so much, Kim. Yeah, I see the thread. It's not just sports, right? I mean, I say just sports, but sports is a lot, right? But it's not just about sports. It's about teamwork. It's about leadership. It's about building that self-confidence and the skills that you need to just exist, right? And grow and develop as a person. So thank you for sharing that. All right, and access and inclusivity seems to be kind of the thread here. So I'm going to move on to Tifani, whose your daughter has participated in USA Gymnastics for nearly 10 years, a sport that is historically dominated by white and Asian athletes. What do you see as the biggest barrier for Black and brown girls in participating in this sport, especially when multiple Black gymnasts have reported a culture of racism? And are there any organizations specifically focused on the effort to make this sport more accessible and inclusive?
Great question, Kim. So I will say, like most of my colleagues here have already mentioned, financial is a huge issue with gymnastics. Gymnastics is not a cheap sport. I think there's always been an ingrained history of racism with gymnastics. And so, 1980 would have been the first time a Black woman had enough points to score to be in the U.S. Olympic team. So that's not too far, right? So we have not come very far. My daughter has competed in state and regional championships, and she's out there on the floor and completely shocked when she sees a judge that looks like her. So Kim, I really appreciate you saying it's hard to see me here if I don't see anyone who's represented that looks like me. So again, the financial gymnastics doesn't include, this is a competitive side, right? So if you're talking about recreation, that's one thing, because your rec, I can come in 2 days a week. The competition is your uniform. It is the cost to get assessed. It is the cost for your travel. All of these things, underserved communities just can't afford to do it. And so, do I have the time and effort to do this? Probably and probably not. It just depends on what your family looks like, makeup looks like. And I will say, most girls at the competition level, there's nothing in here where you can trade uniforms, right? You got this outfit that you're going to wear for a couple of years. You don't trade. There's not like an end of the season where we can stack up uniforms and who doesn't have one so I can give out. These are really, really costly. And I just feel like that it would be much better if there was a more ingrained system for Black and brown communities to be able to have the access and the resources available to them. There are programs, I think, that gyms try to do, at least on the front, to cover costs, right? So you do fundraising. You also do parent participation points at some gyms to cut those costs, but it just doesn't cut it because it's really a very expensive sport. I will say the access part is definitely where you're at in particular areas. Sorry, my dog's in bark. In particular areas where they don't have gymnastic centers. And are you driving? How far are you driving to get to the next gymnastic center if you need to go to rec, or for your competition? Where are you driving? It's not accessible. Also, practices are usually right after school, right? So I think sometimes gymnastic centers aren't thinking about when kids get out of school at 3, gymnastics is at 4. You're there from 4 to 8 o'clock at night. How are you getting home 8 o'clock at night? So you have to forfeit even going to practice. And so that doesn't put you in the right competitive level where you need to be if you're going to actively compete. I will say one organization that I'm extremely familiar with is Brown Girls Do Gymnastics. That's led by Darren Moore in Atlanta. She's fabulous. My daughter and I traveled to North Carolina to the HBCU, the Historical Black College, North Carolina A&T, and she was accepted into their summer program, and it was fabulous. And again, to see her light up because she's around all these Black and brown girls hurt me. Like, she shouldn't have to be like, oh my gosh, she should be slide right in, but she was really in shock. So it really shows systemically we're not even in a place where we need to be to have judges or the administration in the space where it's represented well. So that is one organization that I focus on. I'm an ambassador with them as well. And Darren Moore has also done a lot of advocacy and trying to make sure that there's an expansive space for gymnastics in Black colleges. She's now at number 4, so there's Fisk, Grambling, North Carolina A&T, and Talladega. So those are 4 colleges, and there's many other Black colleges, but those are the 4 that she's already concentrated on to get gymnastics there at the college level. So again, with all the Simone Biles of the world, you know, we're doing great, but we're not there just yet. There's still a lot of work to do. And I will say the hardest hit for me, and always is going to be, is the finance piece of it. That's just not accessible. It is not, there's no way to defray those costs. It's just made for a particular group of people. And I think there is a much better way to be expansive with this, working with USAG and expanding policies, and also gymnastic centers themselves, making it be a little bit more affordable and not out of reach, where you can't have people of color to be participants in gymnastics.
Thank you, Tiffany. I'm sure, I don't know, I mean, I don't do a lot of social media, but I don't know if anybody saw that video floating around from a couple weeks ago with the little Black girl. She was, I think it was from Ireland, passed over. She's a gymnast, passed over, and everybody else got a medal. And it's just heartbreaking to see, because she was supposed to get a medal and the person passed her over. And there was lots of commentary on that and racism. And so I wouldn't, I don't know if I would recommend Googling it if you haven't seen it, because it's really sad. But thank you, Tiffany, for that insight. Okay, so we're going to pivot a little bit. I'm going to ask Brandi about your organization, San Diego Soccer Women. We've talked about young kids, and so we're going to pivot a little bit, because San Diego Soccer Women focuses on, I'm at 40 and up. Brandi, is that right?
30 and older tends to
30.
be, and yeah. So 30 to 80 plus is the way I generally describe it.
Okay, 30 to 80 plus. All right. And your organization advocates for play at every age. It's for inclusive and equitable opportunities and against discrimination. So in the last few years, there have been gross inequalities and inequities highlighted in women's soccer, and a $24 million equal pay settlement with the U.S. Soccer Federation with the U.S. women's soccer team resulted in the same appearance fees as the men, equal travel accommodations, support staff, child care benefits, and an equal split of World Cup bonuses and prize money. However, many women athletes continue to fight for resources and harassment-free workplaces. I'm sure everybody saw the recent incident at the World Cup, where then Royal Spanish Football Federation President Luis Rubiales forcibly kissed Jennifer Hermoso as she collected her winner's medal. What was your organization's response to this, given that your players have a presence in California, but they also play globally? And can you tell me a little bit more about that first, and then how your work ties in with the United Nations 2030 Global Goals for Sustainable Development of Health and Wellness, Gender Equality, and Reduced Inequalities? That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Tell me if you need me to repeat that question.
No, that's great. Thank you. The big thing that I think women need to be doing is having more conversation about what we're experiencing, whether again in the workplace, out on the field, and seeing that on TV specifically with Jennifer Hermoso, that, Me Too, right? Like, so many of us were like, yep, we've all been there. And even recently I was at a soccer event and I was speaking with a woman that I didn't know well, but she and I were comfortable chatting, and a man walked up and put his hand on her shoulder and was standing really closely, and he's having this conversation, and I'm thinking, this is really awkward. Maybe they know each other, and I'm watching her body language, and she didn't look comfortable. And we found a way to kind of change the conversation. He stepped away and left, and both of us looked at each other and said, why did we both allow for him to treat her that way, right? Like, she was like, I don't know why I let him put his hand on me that way, and I don't know why I didn't say something to him, right? And this is the conversation that happens over and over and over, is how do we learn in our own within our own networks, right, in our own way, how to speak up and advocate for ourselves. So we're not always going to be in the public eye as, just individuals out playing, for my groups, right, out on a soccer field. We're not going to be able to tell the news what's going on. It's not going to be seen by everyone. but how can we each find a way to speak up, how to support each other, how to speak up on behalf of one another. We kind of talked about, again, this woman and I were just saying, gosh, what are the cues we could give each other saying, hey, I'm not comfortable, or, and of course we're trained to be polite. We're trained to not cause, some disruption, but also it was this processing of like, am I okay with this? And why does it take us so long? And I think that's the big conversation that came out of it. But also, which is really interesting within the women's soccer community, is how can we show support? So I know that for Jennifer Hermoso, she also plays in Mexico during other seasons, and there were a few women already saying, we're going to go to her games, which she's in Mexico. We're going to, drive down, fly down, depending on where the games are. And we're going to go, which in the past, they never would have considered that. So what we can do financially, buying merch, again, U.S. women's national team, how can we show support as fans? And I think that's what I'm seeing the most within my network is the conversation, the support for one another, knowing that we've generally all been exposed to some situation similar to what we're seeing. Again, whether it's pay equity, whether it's abuse, in one way or another, there's been some common experience that way. And the Global Goals for Sustainable Development, it's not really discussed a whole lot in every day. It's not part of our education here in schools commonly, but it is this structure, this framework, talking about how we can achieve just generally a better world, right? This is a global concept. And for me, back in 2018, I was organizing a trip to this amazing soccer field in northern Norway that was, because of drone photography, started to be seen around the world as the most beautiful pitch that's ever existed. And so I was planning this trip and thinking there's got to be more to what I'm doing, instead of just, I have this group of older women, which in itself is unusual, right? That we're going to go play soccer on this field. But what's the lesson here? What can we do to connect this to something larger? And so I worked with the United Nations Association here in San Diego, an organization called the Global Goals World Cup, which specifically uses women and soccer in this way to be able to create advocates and activists. So by aligning with these organizations, aligning with the global goals, and like you mentioned, gender equality, goal 5, that's one thing that's considered the pillar of these global goals. There's 17 in total. And me having, again, conversations, talking to women about it, just because it's not part of our everyday conversation doesn't mean that it's not important. So talking about that, reduced inequalities, specifically when it comes to women in sports, that not all women are mothers. And so it's not called mom soccer or soccer moms, it's just soccer women. And that's why I'm San Diego Soccer Women. There's doesn't have to be about your relationship with your family. And because I work with older women and my network globally is with older women, we're also not soccer grandmas, right? Whether or not you have kids has nothing to do with how you play on the soccer field, and whether you have grandkids. We kind of, at this point in society, we've gained so much when it comes to understanding that women are women, but we still use the term girls to mean women. And that's actually not okay. And it's not accurate. By definition, when we're talking about girls, we're talking about children, just like we're talking about boys. So I push really hard to make sure we're using correct verbiage. It's not a sales girl or the girl at the counter or the girl at her desk. It really is a woman, and it's okay. And it doesn't even have to be ladies. It can actually be used as the word woman, just as we use the word man. So talking about San Diego Soccer Women and the global goals, gender equality, but again, reduced inequalities, that we see the population of women as who they are as individuals, not so much within their family relationships, and including, we talk about gender spectrum and the LGBTQ plus community, that we're inclusive in that way, again, as kind of a global movement to make sure, even in my soccer sessions, we would introduce ourselves with our pronouns. And that's not something you would usually see in an age 60 and older population in a casual way. It was a lot of learning and a lot of conversation that came out of that I thought was really helpful.
Thank you, Brandi. I love that. Women as individuals, yeah, not all women are mothers, and we want to just be seen as individuals. And yes, you hit on a good point. When people call women girls, that is like one of my, unless I'm being like, hey girl, hey, you know what I mean? That's something different. Like, but
there can be agreed verbiage between friends and community.
Yes,
certain words in certain ways. Yeah. And even when you listen to the news, and amazingly famous, well-spoken people will say young girls. And I think in their minds, they're talking about maybe teenagers or middle school age, when actually young girls theoretically would be even younger than that, right? Because girls are through age 17, So even, as you tune in, not just to using girls instead of women, but also the term young girls to actually mean girls. Hopefully we'll see that shift within the next, in one generation or so, because it's time. There's a lot of meaning behind that.
Yeah, that language is really, that piece is really important. So thank you for pointing that out. So we've done, second through sixth grade. We shifted to 30 to 80 plus, and now we're gonna rewind. And Eliza, since you are an assistant basketball coach at a college, we're gonna focus on that age. So you are currently the assistant women's basketball coach at San Joaquin College. And while girls are not necessarily discouraged from participating in sports, they do not receive the same incentives, encouraging them to continue athletic involvement, even at professional levels, as Kim said. I think female athletes competing on national sports teams in the United States receive less recognition compared to their male counterparts. I think the WNBA has 12 teams and NBA has 30. I love basketball, so. But what would you say when you think about your role? What would you say is the biggest barrier for girls who played in high school to transition to playing at college, and what appears to be motivating factors to them as well?
Well, first off, make sure everybody can hear me. Good.
A little bit louder, yeah.
Well, I mean, first I want to address the vital aspect of the journey as a woman basketball player, right? You coming into college at our level, community college level. You're coming in, transitioning from a young woman to a full-blown woman that gets to sign her own permission slips, right? So there's a big jump from just like the responsibility and then the maturity level that you have to face, especially with our everyday challenges that we face. For the girls, I mean, it's a delicate, for the girls becoming women, it's a delicate balance between school, basketball. Some of these younger athletes are working 20 to 40 hours a week, still trying to maintain their athletic abilities and their education. And it's an ever demanding quest as a woman, right, to find a fulfilling life. So like, there's just so many different components that come into becoming a woman, right? The balance is like a new challenge. So for some of them, it could feel more daunting and overwhelming. And then some are just like, oh, I got this, and I can step up to the challenge. But also that comes from our environment, right? Our backgrounds of where we came from. The not having like a solid support system can be nerve-wracking, especially when you step out into the real world. I understand those struggles and those hurdles that come with that territory completely, especially when I'm reaching out to these young women, when I'm sitting here talking to them about their futures and what they can do, just trying to find, that importance of finding that equilibrium amidst these various facets of our lives, right? Just trying to find that balance all the time. Some of these challenges that they face, I mean, I just basically tell these girls, like, let's draw inspiration from the potential and the motivating factors that lie ahead of them. So telling them to picture the prospect of continuing their education at a 4-year college while still actively playing the sport that they love, whether it's basketball, soccer, softball, being in gymnastics, just anything that, fuels that fire for them, right? And the chance to not only athletic success, but the possibility of securing that college education without financial strain. I mean, that was like my favorite thing as a collegiate athlete, right? Was knowing that I'm taking care of business. And in reality, in my eyes, while I was coming up as a college athlete, was like, dude, they're paying me to play basketball and to get a free education right now. Wow, why not take full reign of this and just let me see what I can do with it. And that's what led me into pursuing it to Cal State San Bernardino. All of that was through this education, without that financial strain, pursuing that, just that beacon of hope to pursue for excellence, right? So I consider, I'll tell them, let's consider the lasting connections that you forge with this basketball journey. It's going to be beyond the court. It's going to be with coaches, trainers, athletic directors, your peers. Like, one day that teammate is going to be a doctor, or that teammate might be a lawyer, like somebody that can help, kind of help you pave your future of who you want to be by learning and meeting all these new people, right? The relationships that are not about just the game, but have been have opened those various doors to other arenas of life, the creating those pathways of success beyond the realm of sports, is those motivating factors that I think that some of these young women are holding on to. I mean, but then you get the pretty straightforward, the passion could be just because they want a drive to pursue a college education, or it could just be I just love this sport and I just want to play it. Or even too, some of them have a competitive spirit to them. It's I can't wait to achieve this personal goal, but then what? I could go professional too. So those aspects and just having those type of dreams and goals are what tend to motivate these young women that are still continuing their education, that are continuing to be collegiate athletes. That's one of those one of those things that you strive for as a coach, to just see these women want to continue for themselves, not just because of just the sport. It's just, that was what I tell people, are just a vehicle to get you going, right? To just get into the vehicle and get you to where you need to be. Now, if we go back to the barriers, one of the biggest barriers for women, young women transitioning from high school to community college, is the limited funding and resources for the athletic programs compared to men programs. Fortunately, at Delta College, we have a great support system for men and women. So, our limitations there are actually not as limited as these other places that I have been. I mean, even for myself as a collegiate athlete, coming up from a community college as well, going into a 4-year, I can see the different barriers that we're facing. I mean, because of all these barriers have of the limited funding and just the resources, they lead to disparities. The coaching quality goes down, the training facilities, the overall support system goes down, societal stereotypes, the gender biases. I mean, they discourage women from pursuing a higher level, or even lead to the lack of confidence and reduced participation. So you see that a lot in these high schools. So when I'm going out to recruit at these local high schools, I'm hearing from kids that are oh yeah, I probably won't be playing after high school. And it's why? It's because I'm just gonna get a job and I'm gonna work. I'm but you have to do that the rest of your life. And so it's why don't you go do something fun for the next 4 years? That's going to, and when I mean fun, something that's going to be different. Yeah, it's going to challenge you. There's going to be ups and downs, but we have to work the rest of our lives. So, and that's where the barrier comes in, of just how it can reduce that participation. And it can also, had stated before, the absence of female role models. I mean, when you don't give the resources and you limit the media coverage on women's sports, I mean, that contributes to the perception that we're trying to pursue as in a career as women. It takes away and yields the same level of same level of success and recognition that these male athletes are getting. And I just think that at that point, that's where it comes into all right, where can we break down these barriers? And as women, where can we stand up, just was just mentioned, for those moments that are hey, why didn't we get those Gatorades, and how come guys got Gatorades and we got waters? I see that's crazy when I look into this, how when I was at the Division I level, we actually had for games water, and then you get to the men's games and they have Gatorades inside their jugs. I'm okay, that's crazy. Can we get some Gatorade too? And mind you, I didn't drink Gatorades, but it was just the fact of just keeping that equality, keeping that equal to both sides. And yeah, we definitely noticed. And it's just because as women, as a woman basketball player, we play below the rim, right? And what does that mean? It means that we're not as athletic. We're not coming out the womb, dunking the ball. And, those are things that we learn to do as women. We learn to build up into those things. And it takes a lot of skill and hard work. And so the recognition of the media, or even just the resources, definitely has been, I think, the biggest barrier when it comes to all women's sports, right? But for women's basketball, I mean, I had one of my own collegiate athletes come up to me just today and say, Coach, WNBA's in season? I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So like, you know, there's just things like that where it's just like, it's because when she's looking on her Instagram, she's looking on her feeds, all she sees is NBA, NBA, NBA. And most of the things that we are putting out as organizations, as women, is coming from us directly, not because we have the media coverage, not because we're getting that support, you know? And so, yeah, the biggest barrier is the lack of not knowing, basically of the unknown for these young women, and trusting the process, because they're not seeing on social media like how it's exposed and how it's being laid out there for the males.
Wow, thank you, Eliza. Yes, the WNBA. I mean, they did just add another team. Just FYI, everybody, Golden State Warriors just added added their WNBA team, so that will start in, I think, 2025. But something that you said, well, a lot of things you said resonated with me. I lost track of where I started writing and stopped writing, but you know, I think like what Brandi said about having the conversation, like being able to like speak up, speak out, and being comfortable with two different things. So Brandi, you were talking about just when that guy was put his hand on that woman's, you know, and you're both like, okay, that was awkward, but you didn't say anything, right? And Eliza, you're saying like you're putting the information out, but it's always coming from us, and just being able to speak up and speak out, like this is not right. Like the Gatorade versus water, right? I mean, that's ridiculous. And I know you and I had talked about the disparities between the NCAA a few years back, right? In the women's and men's tournaments. And they were like, this is not right. I mean, imagine if we didn't have cell phones that recorded things. Like so much of this stuff that happened because one of the women players recorded it. And, you know, 113 pages later, the findings, right? Of the gross inequities between the teams and the tournaments. And it's really about being comfortable, like speaking out, and it's hard sometimes, but if we continue to have these conversations, you know, it will get easier. So thank you for that, Eliza. You have to come to my kids' school and give them a pep talk. Encourage all of the kids to go on to play sports at college. Very
Kim,
motivating.
If I could just add really quick to dovetail on that, you know, with the NCAA, the pro women's soccer, WNBA not having planes to fly in versus NBA. I mean, these issues are at every single level, and they start in preschool. The Gatorade water situation is happening in preschool, in K-12, high school, college, professional, workplace. So if we can connect the dots between the equal pay case that Megan Rapinoe and all the amazing players fought for, the WNBA efforts for gender and racial equity, you know, down to the second grade girl who is not getting the Gatorade at her club soccer or her park and rec practice, and brother is, you know, so I just want to flag, like, K-12 is where it really begins, but, you know, and helping, I actually saw a recent study that identified that girls who play sports actually are known to call out gender discrimination at higher rates. So just the fact of them playing sports is giving them a language to notice inequities and speak up about them. So there's so many benefits, but yeah, thank you.
If I can just tag on that very briefly, that I think something really interesting working between generations, where I have women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s out, you know, fighting on the soccer field to win the game. You know, there's not even going to be a trophy or a medal or anything else. They're just there for the play of it, the joy of it, but also the adrenaline and the challenge. And as much as we look to our older generations for solutions, I think we're also at a point that we need to look at younger generations, right? Older generations, especially women that didn't have the same upbringing in general. The culture was different. That we do need to turn to what we're seeing now in young women, young adults in general, and say, wait, you know, how are they making changes? How are they standing up? And how do we bring that into, you know, how we treat others at our age? How do we see ourselves? And And I think that's a big part of women playing sports at older ages, is seeing themselves as athletes, seeing themselves as advocates, that there can be a new culture created within older community.
I love that. I think when you said that, Brandi, I just kind of thought about like intergenerational programming, and how beneficial it is, whether it's sports or anything, right? How beneficial it is for generations to learn from each other. I mean, teenagers think they know everything. My teenagers do, but they know a lot, and so do older people, right? So, no, that's
The benefit
great.
of young people seeing, especially women, being active and playful when they're older. You know, we talk about seeing girls early on, you know, whether they're not starting sports, not starting physical activity, and touching on my work with the Sports Bra Project, that a lot of girls right around puberty is when you see them leaving. And part of it is body development, that those conversations aren't happening appropriately with coaches, with parents, with, you know, other directors, of whether it's PE teachers, right? And so if we can kind of give that example, not only is there the option potentially of college sports, professional sports, but truly you may just be able to be a recreational athlete the rest of your life. There doesn't have to be an end game that, okay, well, if I don't get on this team by the time I'm 12, by the time I'm, you know, if I didn't get into this college, that you will see that you're, you know, out at the local park, there's women playing soccer at 50, 60, 70 years old. The same thing with volleyball and basketball and softball. We have older women's teams that are out there being examples and role models for boys and for girls, to understand that the lifespan of being active and healthy isn't related to whether or not you get into college or professional sports or anything else.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to add to this, Brandi, while I have this moment to tag on with the, you know, the mental and emotional drain that this takes for athletes. I think part of gymnastics, at least from my end of this, is that people need to have fun. Like, have fun. You know, it's an individual sport. It's not like a team sport. I play softball, right? So Eliza, you and I are like, this is a team sport. We're playing on each other. That's not the same thing for gymnastics. So I come from a different lens when I'm like, how come you guys aren't doing the thing? You need to be motivated. So I'm always out there with the girls before, after, everything to keep them motivated, because it is the team does actually win. I'm at the very end of this, but you know, Simone Biles was integral in the space of like, I need to take a break. And it's okay to take a break. And people have followed her and just said, I need some time to stop and think about what I'm doing for my own well-being. And then she picked back up and we see where we're at, right? You full throttle once you've had some time to check yourself. So I think it's really important to add, you know, having fun in all this is where you should be. And I think people start this way when you're in rec, you're like, let's have fun. But I think something switches over a little bit when you get to competitive sports, where it no longer becomes fun. It becomes, I have to do this for my parents, I have to do this for the pressure, I have to do this because I have these really crazy high standards for myself. And so at least for me in my household, this is about you having fun, you be the best you that you can be. And we figure out the team stuff at the end of it. But don't go in there with this crazy, heavy, you know, mental drain, right? And stress, because you can't bring your best foot forward. So I do think in all sports, it's always about fun and what I can do and how I'm bringing my best A game, and not all the social pressures and peer pressures. So Brandi, I really appreciate you bringing up once you hit puberty, right? Because in gymnastics, you have the whole outfit. So my daughter even, you know, I think Kimmy brought this up about being outspoken. She's like, hang on a second. How come boys have 6 events in gymnastics and girls have 4? I can do all 6. I'm like, well, then let's join the boys gymnastics team, right? So be a trendsetter. So she's picking out some things at her young age already that she sees that are very unequal. Again, to the whole leotard, that has been a topic in USAG of what the leotard looks like, and when your body does change, what you're wearing underneath, and there's not really a sports bra that you really wear underneath, right? So do provide a brief, but not really like a sports bra. So this is all on the parenting, you're right, and the coaching, and having real, I think, effective coaches who can bring these things up, because we're all, you know, girls who are being grown women who really need to talk about these things. We all have the same, you know, we're working with the same equipment here. So there's nothing that people can't talk about or share their experiences or how they can be most helpful. And I think that starts with your coaching. Also, it helps at home to have that extra backup. So thanks for Brandi for bringing that up.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thanks, everyone. I'm gonna pivot a little bit and kind of go off script, I guess. So, because I'm looking at the time and I want to make sure that that I ask you this question, because there's a lot going on, and you all touched on the lifespan, right, of what it looks like for girls and women in health and wellness and sports. And one of the things that I heard come up a few times is joy, and it's funny because I actually just texted somebody today and said, just remember, focus on joy this year, because it's really important. And joy, whether you're in a team sport or an individual sport, or just playing, just taking a run outside by yourself, right? You want to feel joy and focus on your health and your mental health as well. So, sorry, went off on a tangent, but that's kind of the what I wanted to say about that. But I do want to ask, with all of the things that we've touched on today and that we didn't get to touch on, and anybody can jump in here, please. What are some things for folks listening today, and that will be listening later to this recording? What are some tangible things that folks can do in order to really make a difference, to really move the needle in equity and equality for women and girls in sports and health? Anybody
I
can
can go really
jump in.
quickly. I'm going to put it in the chat too, but a lot of it is treating girls well, making them welcome, connecting with them, finding out what they want to play, finding out how they want to play. Super competitive, not so competitive. Maybe they want to have a friend with them. They want to not feel like they're not an expert right away. So introduce the skill slowly and then grow from there. So I'm putting in the chat a great resource that's a checklist for gender equity in K-12 sports and college. And then I can also put in the chat a couple other resources that Bossy's created, as well as Positive Coaching Alliance. But making sure we're meeting girls where they're at will help them join and stay in the game for a lifetime of success and wellness. So those are some of my resources, and I'll pass it on.
Thanks, I love that. And I'll include those links on the recording, the YouTube as well.
I think I'll go after you really quickly. I think raising awareness about the sport. This depends on whatever the sport is. If you have a particular sport that you absolutely love, I think find out everything you can to find out, the do's and the don'ts, and what you need to know, how much it costs, what are the access, what's the resource available to you, and also try it out for fun first before you think it's something you want to do as a long haul or something you want to do competitively, because it's very different. So at least bring your own toolkit to the table on with what you know about the sport, so it doesn't take you off guard or you're like, wrong sport for me, right? You want to be real well prepared for what you like to do. That's it for me.
Thanks, Tiffany.
I think I would add to get involved. For having coaches to volunteer your time, who you are. You do not have to be a marathon runner. You don't have to be a runner to be with Girls on the Run. Just show up for girls so that they know, so they can see somebody from their community that cares about them. We don't have to be, I would love to have this amazing athletic ability, but it's not my strength. And so share your strengths with girls in your community. They need to see it. They absolutely soak it up. And so if anyone is wondering where to start, please don't hesitate in putting yourself out there. The girls, your community, they need you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I'll say a couple quick things. When it comes to sustainability, if it's possible to recycle gear, I know Tiffany was mentioning about not being able to kind of take some of the uniforms and swap them around, but at least in women's soccer and a lot of team sports, there are organizations you can give your old cleats, your old tennis shoes, your uniforms, right? Like there are ways to make sure that all of this gear isn't just being put to waste in general. So that's one thing. Specifically with the sports bra project, we collect new sports bras, and then from there we distribute them to organizations that need them, no matter how small. We're able to get these sports bras to both women and girls, but focusing obviously on girls, to make sure again that they're just active, whether that's PE class or running outside. It's just a necessary piece of equipment. It's kind of the way that it's being framed. It's not something special or unique. It's just, this is what you're a girl, you're a woman, here's what you need to be able to be active. And at a really high level, as far as professional sports go, I know that a lot of us in advocacy, we've been talking to some of the professional organizations about making sure their merch represents women, right? If every time you go to buy a shirt for the team that you love, no matter which sport, the only options are either the man cut, which some women love, but a lot of women don't, or they're very low cut V-necks that are very tight and small, right? Like, again, how women are being seen within the sports community is kind of this extreme one way or the other. So speak up, send an email, get on social media and let the professional sports know that you'd like to be a fan and be included in the space, with meeting you where you are, and that is that you may not necessarily want that type of merch for yourself. And then when it comes to being active, right, be a mentor, not only coaching, but play yourself. Play in the yard, play with your kids, play with the neighbor kids, or just go play with other adults. If there isn't a program in your area, talk to Parks and Recreation. Use some of the sites like Meetup, Facebook events. There's just been amazing movement from what I've seen within social media. And again, some of those event planning platforms where women are just starting to meet up on their own to train. I haven't played soccer in 20 years. Does anybody want to go out and kick a ball with me? And that's meeting so many needs. Again, we talk about mental health. We talk about social, especially after the pandemic, right? This reconnection that's happening. So get out there and play, whatever your age, whatever your ability, and see what that feels like and try to pull others in with you.
Thank you, Brandi.
I'd like to touch on it really quick because I know we're wrapping up, but just coming from another perspective, I mean, I'm not only a collegiate coach, but I'm also a gym owner as well. So a woman-owned gym that focuses on health, wellness, and fitness. What I would say is just for those who want a different perspective, and it's not just if they don't want to play sports, but they want to just get strong, right? We talked about being strong is fun. Like that's my one of my main things I say at my gym all the time is like, hey, being strong is fun. That's why we're here. So I would say, get into a gym. Something that my community benefits tremendously from is we have so many women from different age that vary from different age groups that take part in our group exercises. So one, like they said, they have a buddy there. They meet friends, they build a community, they build camaraderie within the gym by just going to these group classes. Something about watching another person sweat just as hard as you makes it even more enjoyable, right? There's that word again, joy. So it's just those kind of things, the physical transformation that they can feel, the emotional, the mental. Those are all things that play. That if we had more time, that I would have expressed to you guys about the gym atmosphere that we have in Lodi. They're maintaining strength, flexibility, just overall well-being. They're being able to be social, get out and have a social aspect of the gym where they build connections, friendships. That plays a vital role in our emotional well-being. And so, like you said, joining those groups, right? Getting out there, finding a buddy to work out with, or just going out there with your kids, your grandchildren, your neighbor, just doing that aspect of getting into a gym. That also too can be a great starter to building up a confidence. That confidence that individuals face, whether it doesn't matter, we could be 6 years old all the way to 90 years old, still facing that same confidence issues, whether it's from age, whether it's from the transformation of our bodies changing from becoming a girl to a woman to a mom. All of those things are so important, and they just play a vital role in our whole entire life. That I would say that if they can't get into a sport, if they're not confident enough to play a sport yet, get into the gym, join a group class, get a buddy. It definitely goes a long way. I mean, the mental health has reduced just them doing that just has reduced their cognitive decline. They've improved their overall cognitive function. I mean, and it's just important for individuals at every age, right? And so just building that has been a higher quality of life in my gym. So I definitely suggest find a gym if you can't find a group to join as far as sport, or just even finding your own self-soothing, your own self-soothing hobby, I guess you can say. Whatever makes that joy come out, right?
Thank you, Eliza. That's great. No, I might visit your gym. It's not too far away from me, so Tiffany, we'll visit Eliza's gym together. So, no, thank you. This has been amazing. I want to thank people for joining, those listening, and the panelists. You all have had such really great insight and different perspectives on this. And thank you for taking the time and sharing your knowledge and experience with us. And really just really, I'm interested in digging more into the resources that you all are providing, and I will be providing that to our listeners as well. So thank you, and everyone have a good night. I'm going to stop recording, but if I could have our panelists stay on, that would be great. And I will say goodbye to everyone else. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Night, everybody.